Why did you come today? The question hung in the room longer than it should have. Nadia opened her mouth, closed it. She hadn't prepared for that. She had prepared tears, prepared explanations, prepared pain, but not that question. I needed to talk, she said finally. The pastor didn't nod, didn't interrupt, didn't comfort. And after the talking, he asked. Something shifted inside her as she bowed her head. Nadia sat alone in her apartment. The same silence followed her home. She replayed the moment again and again. Not the words. The absence of what usually came after them. No reassurance. No rescue. No one stepping in to carry her. She reached for her phone, then stopped. Because for the first time, she wasn't sure who she was calling anymore. Before the silence, there was a house that felt alive. In the kitchen, Nadia's father stood over a pot, smiling as if cooking was a celebration. Nadia, small, serious, proud, stood on a chair beside him. Careful, he said. Not too much salt. Nadia copied him exactly. Like this. He tasted it, nodded once, and grinned. Perfect, princess. Princess. He said it like it was her real name. Later, he fixed things around the house with her trailing behind, handing him tools like she was his helper. Hold that, princess. She held it. Every time. At night, he sat with a book open on his lap, reading slowly. Nadia leaned against his shoulder. Safe. And when the story ended, he kissed her forehead, slow, certain, like a promise. I'm right here, princess. Always. No matter what. Even if you don't see me for a while. I'm still yours. You hear me? Nadia nodded into his shirt. Her fingers tightened around his sleeve, like she could lock him there. Always, she whispered, practicing the word like it was a spell. One afternoon, Nadia came home from school. Her backpack slid off her shoulder onto the floor. She stepped into the house. Daddy. No answer. She walked further. Daddy, I'm home. The house was still. Too still. Her mother sat on the couch, eyes fixed ahead, as if looking at a place Nadia couldn't see. Nadia's brothers stood nearby. Quiet. Nadia's voice grew smaller. Where's Daddy? Her mother answered without warmth, without cruelty. Just absence. He left. Nadia blinked, waiting for the next part. Left where? Her mother finally turned. He's not coming back. The words didn't slam. They sank. And Nadia stood there, frozen, not crying yet, just listening for the footsteps she knew by heart. She stared at the doorway like it might correct the sentence. Because he said always. She looked at her mother again, confused, almost offended. But he said he wouldn't. No one answered that. No one corrected it. No one chased after always. The house didn't collapse. It emptied. Her mother became cold, distant, unreachable. Her brothers became silent, as if grief had stolen their voices. And Nadia became careful. She cooked. She cleaned. She fixed what she could. Not because she loved chores. Because she watched faces. If she did enough, maybe warmth would return. If she stayed useful, maybe people would stay. But love didn't return. Not the way it used to. So Nadia started learning a different rule. Don't ask for it. Don't need it. Don't reach first. And at night, when her chest felt too tight, she would lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, whispering prayers like they were bricks. God, you stay. You don't leave. Her small hands would press into her blanket, as if holding herself down. I don't need anybody. Just you. She didn't say it like peace. She said it like protection. Laura was the first friend who stayed close. They walked home together, shared snacks, finished each other's sentences. When Laura laughed, Nadia leaned in. When Laura looked at her phone, Nadia watched the screen. One afternoon, Nadia noticed Laura texting, smiling. Who's that? Nadia asked lightly. My boyfriend, Laura said. We're supposed to hang out later. Nadia nodded. Her smile stayed in place. That night, Nadia lay on her bed, phone resting on her stomach. She typed slowly. I don't feel good. I think something's wrong. She watched the message send. Her chest tightened, not with fear, but anticipation. Laura replied almost immediately. Do you want me to come over? Nadia waited a few seconds before answering. If you can. Minutes later, Laura was there, sitting on the edge of the bed, hand warm against Nadia's arm. Nadia closed her eyes. At least she's here. At least she's not with him. She's supposed to be with me. Laura hesitated, phone buzzing in her hand. I told him I couldn't come, Laura said. I'll stay tonight, okay? Relief spread through Nadia's chest, soft and satisfying. Good. They lay side by side, the room dark, the house quiet. As Laura drifted to sleep, Nadia stared at the ceiling, listening to her breathing. This feels safe. This feels right. Her fingers curled into the blanket. If I let her go, she might not come back. In the morning, Laura left early. Quick hug. Apology for rushing. Nadia watched from the doorway until Laura's car disappeared. The house felt larger without her. That night, Nadia prayed softly, face turned to the wall. God, I don't need anyone. She paused. I just like it better when they choose me. Silence answered. Nadia sat on the edge of her bed, phone pressed to her ear, knees pulled close to her chest. The room was quiet except for her breathing. I don't really need people anymore, she said. I'm okay with just God. Pastor Elijah didn't answer immediately. She could hear papers shift on his end. A pause, intentional. God is enough, he said at last. In him, you lack nothing. Nadia exhaled, relief loosening her shoulders. That's what I've been saying. But his voice continued. If God intended you to live alone, he said calmly, he would not have created community. He created Adam. And then he said it was not good for him to be alone. Nadia stared at the wall. God didn't design you to walk this life by yourself, he said. He placed you in a family. He gave you parents, brothers, a church. She shifted on the bed. And he gave you people like me, he added. Nadia's fingers tightened around the phone. If God's plan was isolation, he said, you wouldn't be calling me right now. You wouldn't need teaching. You wouldn't need preaching. You wouldn't need encouragement spoken through a human voice. Her throat tightened. She didn't respond. Avoiding people is not holiness, Nadia, he said gently. Sometimes it's protection disguised as faith. Silence filled the line. So, I should let people in? She asked quietly. Slowly. Wisely, he said. But yes, live your life. Have friends. Build relationships. Then his tone shifted, not harsh, but grounded. And one more thing, Nadia. She waited. Entering relationships does not mean giving yourself away, he said. Your body is not the price you pay to keep someone. Her jaw tightened. The Bible is clear about that. Fornication wounds the soul before it ever touches the flesh. He paused. If someone asks you to cross that line to prove love, they are not asking for love. Nadia nodded, even though he couldn't see her. Okay, she said. The call ended. She lay back on the bed, phone resting on her chest, staring at the ceiling. God and people. She rolled the words around in her mind. The next weeks, she stayed longer after church, answered messages instead of ignoring them, let conversations stretch. She told herself she was learning balance. And that was how she met Lucas. Years later, Nadia met Lucas. He was charming, confident, effortless. You're different, he told her. She smiled, pretending it didn't matter. It did. That night, they sat close, knees brushing, the room dim and quiet. Lucas leaned in. If you love me, you wouldn't say no. Nadia's breath caught. A voice surfaced, soft, steady. Keep yourself pure, princess. Her father's voice. Clear. Certain. Her hands tightened in her lap. Then another voice followed. Older, grounded. Your body is not the price you pay to keep someone. Pastor Elijah. The room felt suddenly smaller. Nadia swallowed. I don't want to, she said quietly. Lucas leaned back, disappointment settling across his face. I thought you loved me. The words pressed into her chest, and something inside her shifted. Her father said always, and still left. The pastor said wait, but he wasn't here. Lucas was. If you don't give him this, another thought whispered, he'll go too, and you'll be alone again. Her pulse thudded in her ears. She nodded once. Okay. Afterward, Lucas moved quickly, shirt, shoes, door. This was nice, he said, already turning away. The lock clicked. Nadia stayed where she was, staring at the space he'd been. She waited. For warmth. For relief. Instead, the room felt hollow. Later, alone, she curled inward, pressing her forehead to the mattress. God, I tried to do it right. Her voice was thin. I just didn't want to be left. The ceiling gave no answer. She rolled onto her back, eyes burning. I don't need anyone, she whispered. People leave anyway. But her hands were shaking when she said it. Then there was Dan. People liked Dan without trying. He laughed easily. Strangers leaned toward him. At first, Nadia told herself it didn't matter. She watched him talk, watched hands gesture, watched smiles linger a second too long. Who was that? She asked casually one evening. A friend from work, Dan said. Nadia nodded, stored the answer. Later, her phone lit up. Where are you? With friends. She stared at the message, imagining rooms she couldn't see. Why didn't you invite me? I didn't think. You didn't think about me. Silence followed. When they were together again, Nadia stayed close. Her hand always found his arm. Her eyes tracked every laugh that wasn't hers. Dan pulled back once, gently. You don't have to watch me like that. She smiled. I'm not. But she was. One night, he stood near the door, keys in hand. I feel like I'm always explaining myself, he said. Like I can't breathe. Her chest burned. So you're leaving too? Dan didn't answer right away. Then, I can't do this anymore. The door closed behind him. Nadia stood still, anger rising fast, hot, protective. Anger was easier than remembering the feeling. The one that whispered, here it comes again. Andy was different. He didn't rush her, didn't pull her closer than she chose, didn't ask for more. They talked instead. Long walks after church, shared jokes, shared silences. One evening, they sat across from each other, coffee cooling between them. I want to honor God with you, Andy said. That means patience. Nadia nodded, something unfamiliar warming her chest. With Andy, she didn't feel chased. She felt seen. They prayed together, awkward at first, then easy. They laughed. They learned each other slowly. And somewhere between the conversations and the quiet, Nadia noticed it. She wasn't bracing. She wasn't bargaining. She was loving, clean, unforced, real. That frightened her. One night, alone, Nadia stared at her phone. This feels good. The thought didn't bring peace. It brought dread. Good things don't stay. She pictured Andy leaving. Not angry. Not cruel. Just gone. Her chest tightened. Too good means temporary. She typed. Erased. Typed again. I don't think we should keep seeing each other. Her finger hovered. Better to leave before it hurts. She sent it. The phone vibrated moments later. She didn't read it. She set it face down and pressed her palms into her eyes. Her father said always. And still left. Andy was good. And that made him dangerous. After Andy, Nadia didn't slow down. She stayed busy. Stayed surrounded. Said yes to invitations she didn't care about. Laughter filled rooms. Faces filled seats around her. And still, something stayed restless. When people were close, she relaxed. When attention drifted, something sharp rose inside her. At church, she noticed who people greeted first, who they lingered with, who they chose. A tightness formed in her chest. Why not me? She smiled anyway. At home, silence followed her. She scrolled through her phone, not looking for anyone specific. Just proof. Proof she mattered. Proof she wasn't invisible. She told herself she wanted love, connection, joy. But underneath that want, another voice kept watch. Don't get too close. Don't trust it. If they stay, it's because you're needed. And if they leave, you didn't lose anything real. That night, she knelt by her bed, words tumbling fast. God, I'm trying. I'm doing what you said. I'm letting people in. Her voice cracked. Just don't let them leave. Silence answered. The next day, when Pastor Elijah asked how she was doing, she surprised herself. I'm tired, she said. And when he listened, really listened, something inside her loosened. Not healed, relieved. And without realizing it, Nadia took one small step closer to the place where she felt safest. Being held. At church, Nadia stayed busy. She arrived early, left late, found reasons to be needed. She sang in the choir, eyes closed, hands lifted. When the music swelled, her face softened. People noticed. You're always so faithful, someone said once. Nadia smiled. After service, she lingered, listened, laughed in the right places. When someone asked how she was doing, she answered easily. I'm good. At home, the noise fell away. Her phone lay beside her on the bed. She didn't reach for it right away. The room felt too quiet. She scrolled instead, not looking for anyone specific. Just movement. Just presence. When a message finally came, her chest loosened. She held the phone a second longer than necessary. Nadia didn't set out to lean on Pastor Elijah. At first, it was nothing. A few words after service. A question answered more slowly than she expected. She noticed he listened with his whole body. Eyes steady, hands still. When she spoke, he didn't finish her sentences, didn't correct her tone, didn't rush her toward solutions. The next time they spoke, he remembered. Not dates, not details. Wait. Later, when she called, he answered calmly. I have a few minutes. She sat down wherever she was standing. Sometimes she talked. Sometimes she cried. Sometimes she said very little at all. He didn't fill the silence. When the call ended, her chest felt lighter, her thoughts slower. She didn't call him every day, just when the tightness wouldn't leave. One evening, exhausted, the words slipped out. Daddy. There was a brief pause. I'm here, daughter, he said. Something in her softened. He said it easily, naturally. She held the phone tighter. After that, the words stayed. Daddy. Daughter. She noticed he didn't use it with others. Not after service. Not in passing. With her, it was different. She didn't say that out loud. But she felt it. Chosen. Seen. Safe. When she hung up those calls, the quiet didn't press in as hard. And for the first time in a long while, someone stayed on the line. Until she was ready to let go. The calls didn't multiply overnight. At first, they were occasional. After a hard day. After a heavy thought. Daddy, do you have a minute? When he answered, her shoulders dropped. Her breathing slowed. She began saving things for those calls. Notes in her phone. Small lists folded into her bag. So she wouldn't forget. So she could say everything while she had him. If a day passed without hearing from him, she felt it. Not panic. Restlessness. At work, her phone buzzed. She glanced down. Daddy. She ended the call she was on. Paused the conversation in front of her. Stepped away without explanation. I'll call you back, she said, already moving. His voice filled her ear, and the tension eased. She didn't notice when it started happening more often. Only that everything else could wait. Later that night, she sat on her bed, phone warm in her hand, list checked off. When the call ended, the quiet returned. But it waited. And without deciding to, the place she went to steady herself became the place she leaned on. Nadia called once. No answer. She waited, phone in her hand, eyes fixed on the screen. Then she called again. Nothing. She set the phone down carefully, like the sound might return if she didn't scare it away. Later that night, a message appeared. Sorry, Nadia. Busy day. We'll talk soon. She read it twice. Soon felt farther than silence. At church, Nadia noticed it before she could name it. Pastor Elijah stood near the aisle, talking with Sister Anna. They were smiling, laughing softly. My daughter, he said warmly. Nadia froze. She watched him speak to her the way he used to speak to Nadia. Unhurried. Present. Sister Anna laughed again. Pastor Elijah laughed with her. Nadia felt it then. A tight pull in her chest. When his eyes passed over the room, they didn't stop on her. She smiled anyway. Her stomach tightened. For the first time, she wondered. When did that stop being mine? The meetings changed. They ended sooner. He checked the time. I'm sorry, Nadia. I have another appointment. She nodded quickly. Next time, he said. Next time stayed with her long after she left his office. That night, she rewrote her notes. Added more lines. More explanations. Just in case. The news about Andy reached her quietly. He got married. Nadia nodded when someone mentioned it. That's nice. Later, she saw them together. Andy stood beside his wife, relaxed, laughing. Her hand rested easily in his. When Andy noticed Nadia, he smiled. Polite. Brief. Then turned back to his wife. Nadia looked away too quickly. Her chest tightened. That should have been me. The thought startled her. She swallowed it down. Across the room, Laura sat with her husband now, leaning into him. Focused. Nadia waved. Laura waved back. Then turned back to her family. Messages went unanswered longer these days. Calls returned later. Sometimes not at all. Sorry, busy. I'll call you. She didn't. Nadia stood between rows of people who belonged to someone else. Andy had a wife. Laura had a family. And she felt the space they left behind. More sharply than she expected. Nadia started watching Pastor Elijah more closely. Who he spoke to, how long he stayed, who he laughed with. Once she heard him say, "I'm proud of you, daughter." Not to her. Her throat closed. That night, she called. No answer. The apartment felt too quiet. Her phone lay face down beside her. Andy had a wife. Laura had a family. The church had others. And Pastor Elijah was no longer always there. Nadia wrapped her arms around herself, sitting on the edge of the bed. Not angry, not crying, empty. For the first time, the thought rose without resistance. What if no one stays? She reached for her phone, then stopped. There was no one left to call. Nadia walked into Pastor Elijah's office, expecting relief. The room was quiet. He didn't smile first, didn't rise to greet her. He gestured to the chair. She sat, hands folded too tightly in her lap. "Daddy," she began, voice already soft. "I'm not okay. Everything feels like it's slipping again." He listened, didn't interrupt, didn't lean forward. Then he asked calmly, "Why did you come today?" The question landed heavier than she expected. Nadia opened her mouth, closed it. She hadn't prepared for that. She had prepared tears, prepared explanations, prepared pain, but not that question. I needed to talk," she said finally. He nodded once. And after the talking, the room felt smaller. Nadia looked down at her hands. Silence stretched. She searched for words that had always worked before. The right tone, the right weakness. But none of them came. Pastor Elijah's voice stayed steady. "What were you hoping would happen when you came?" Her chest tightened. She swallowed. "I thought I'd feel better." Another pause. He didn't rush to rescue her from it. "And after you feel better?" he asked. Her throat burned. She had never gone past that point before. Pastor Elijah leaned back slightly. "For a long time," he said, "I listened to you. I made space for your pain. That was necessary." Nadia nodded quickly, tears forming on cue. "But now," he continued, "you are no longer in a season where comfort alone will heal you." Her breath caught. "You've learned how to survive," he said. "But survival is not the same as living." He looked at her carefully. "Every time the ache returns, you reach for someone to quiet it. And when they become unavailable, the fear rises." Nadia's jaw tightened. "You are not weak," he said, "but you have learned to manage pain instead of healing it." The words pressed against something she didn't want to see. Pastor Elijah opened his Bible, then closed it again. "Your father leaving wounded you deeply," he said. "That pain was real." Nadia nodded. "But pain explains where you started. It does not justify where you chose to stay." Her chest tightened. "Over time," he continued, "you agreed with certain thoughts. Thoughts that felt protective. Thoughts that promised safety. And those thoughts shaped your actions." He paused. "And he was good to you. He did not abandon you." Nadia stiffened. "But you left first." The room went very still. "If you do not deal with what lies in your thoughts," he said, "you will keep repeating the same destruction, even when God places good people in your life." Nadia nodded outwardly. Inside, something resisted. "Why is this my responsibility? I didn't choose to be abandoned." But another fear rose beneath the anger. "If I heal, who will come for me? If I stop needing, who will stay?" Pastor Elijah's voice cut through her thoughts. "Your mind does not stay empty." The words exposed her. Because she had prayed before, cried before, promised before, and the thoughts always returned. Her tears slowed. Not dramatic, not urgent, honest. For the first time, comfort wasn't being offered. Only truth. "For how long will you keep feeding anger?" he asked. "For how long will jealousy occupy your mind? For how long will you depend on people to fill what only God can heal?" Then his tone shifted. Slower, deliberate. "Now," he said, "this is where we begin your healing process. The first step is repentance. You must go before God and ask Him for forgiveness. Not just for what happened to you, but for what you accepted afterward. Forgiveness for agreeing with jealousy. Forgiveness for holding on to anger. Forgiveness for allowing bitterness, manipulation, and emotional dependency to live in your heart. You must ask God to remove those things from within you. But listen to me carefully," he continued. Praying for God to remove bad thoughts is not enough. If you remove them and leave the space empty, they will return. That is why healing does not stop at removal. He opened his Bible. That space must be replaced. Replaced with truth. Replaced with what God says. Replaced with good thoughts, according to his word. Listen. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Philippians 4, verse 8. He let the word settle. You see, Nadia, he continued, it is not enough to ask God to remove bad thoughts. If you remove anger but replace it with nothing, anger will return. If you remove jealousy but leave the space empty, jealousy will come back. If you remove bitterness but do not plant truth, bitterness will grow again. Your mind does not stay empty, he said. It is always occupied. That is why God does not only tell us what to remove, he tells us what to replace it with. Truth, purity, things that are good, things that are worthy. You must pray for God to cleanse your heart, he said. But you must also take responsibility to replace what was unclean. Then his voice softened, but did not lose authority. Your thoughts shape your actions, and your actions shape your life. You cannot change your life unless you change what you allow to live in your mind. He paused. One more thing, he said. A pure heart alone is not enough. You must forgive your father, your past, the people who hurt you. Because if you keep looking backward, even a clean heart will remain stuck. He closed the Bible fully now. You need both, a pure heart and the courage to move forward. Then he did not stand. Instead, he looked at her with the seriousness of someone handing over something precious. One last thing, he said. If you are serious about healing, then your walk with God cannot be occasional. You must read the Word of God every day. You must meditate on it, not rush it, not skim it. Because the Word is what will cleanse your mind from what is impure. It is what will retrain your thoughts. It is what will keep you from returning to old patterns. He paused, then added, there is one verse I want you to carry with you daily. One verse I believe is among the most important in the entire Bible. He opened the scriptures again. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Proverbs 4, verse 23. This must become your daily meditation, he said. Guard your heart, not just from people, but from thoughts. Guard it from jealousy. Guard it from anger. Guard it from lies that feel familiar. Because if you guard your heart, your life will follow. Do this every day. Read the Word. Meditate on it. Let it cleanse your mind. That is how your thoughts will stay clean. That is how your heart will remain protected. And that, he said, is how healing is maintained. Finally, the last sentence. Calm, steady, unavoidable. Nadia, the season of being carried is over. Now you must decide. Do you want to stay comfortable in brokenness? Or do you want to stand in healing? Nadia went home quietly. No music, no tears. The words followed her anyway. Your mind does not stay empty. She paced the apartment. Saturday. Stood again. The ache rose. Habit answered before obedience. She reached for her phone. Daddy. Her voice broke the moment he answered. I don't understand, she said quickly. Everything feels different now. You used to listen longer. You used to be gentler. Now it feels like you're pulling away. She told the old stories again. The abandonment. The loneliness. Carefully skipping responsibility. She waited for the familiar softness. It didn't come. Nadia, he said calmly. This is not rejection. Her stomach dropped. This is direction. She shook her head, tears spilling. Why now? She asked. Why were you patient with me before, and suddenly you're not? There was no irritation in his voice. Because before, you needed to be carried, he said. And now, you need to learn how to walk. She pressed the phone harder to her ear. You call me father, he continued. But a good father does not keep carrying a child who is ready to stand. Silence. I am also your shepherd, Nadia, he said. And a shepherd does not watch the sheep wander into danger and say nothing. She pictured it without trying. A staff, a steady hand, The rod protects. The staff pulls back. If I let you continue this way, he said, I would not be loving you. I would be abandoning you to a pattern that keeps you wounded. Her chest tightened. When you were younger, he said, decisions were made for you. Now, you must learn to take responsibility for them. That is not punishment. That is growth. His voice softened, but didn't bend. I am still here, Nadia, but I will not carry you anymore. The call ended. Nadia stared at the phone, and for the first time, healing demanded something from her. The apartment was quiet again. Nadia sat on the floor, back against the couch, knees pulled in. Her phone lay across the room where she'd left it. She looked around. Nothing was wrong. And that was the problem. She loved God. She knew that. She served. She sang. She showed up. From the outside, everything looked full. But inside, she felt hollow. Not broken in pieces. Just empty. She had learned how to look okay. How to sound spiritual. How to keep moving. But happiness never stayed. She closed her eyes. I've been surviving, she realized. Not living. Her chest tightened. Not with fear this time, but clarity. I can't keep pretending this is enough. She thought of God's glory. A life that reflected Him. A heart that was whole. And she knew that kind of life couldn't grow in a soul crowded with fear, jealousy, and need. She sat there a long time. Then Pastor Elijah's voice surfaced. Not loud, not forceful, steady. A shepherd doesn't lead for control. He leads for protection. She believed him, not because he was perfect, but because his words had never pointed her to himself, only forward. If I trust him as a father, if I believe he is a shepherd, then following means more than listening. It means obeying. The thought scared her, but for the first time, it didn't feel like loss. It felt like alignment. She bowed her head. God, I don't want to just love you. I want to live for you. And I can't do that like this. Her breath steadied. No drama. No rush. Just a quiet decision forming. If she wanted a healed life, she would have to walk the path she'd been resisting. And this time, she wouldn't run from it. Nadia didn't announce the change. She withdrew. 3 days. No noise. No explanations. She left her phone off most of the time. A Bible. A notebook. Water. She woke early. Sat on the floor. Stayed there long after her legs went numb. She fasted. Prayed. Listened. At first, her thoughts were loud. Old fears. Old faces. She wrote them down. Read them back. Let them sit in the open. By the second day, the noise slowed. She saw herself clearly. The reaching. The jealousy. The hunger to be filled by people. And she didn't run from it. She stayed. By the third day, something shifted. Not fireworks. Direction. When she returned, she didn't rush back into comfort. She signed up quietly. Evangelism team. Saturday mornings. Street corners. Hospital visits. She learned names. Listened to stories that weren't hers. Prayed for strangers with trembling hands. She noticed something unexpected. Her thoughts weren't circling inward anymore. When she spoke to Pastor Elijah, the conversation sounded different. We met someone today, she said once. Can you pray for him? They talked about people, souls, growth. Once a week, she set a day apart. No food, no distractions, just prayer. Not for relief, but for salvation. Her life began to feel useful, whole. At night, when old memories surfaced, they didn't accuse her anymore. She believed she was forgiven. And slowly, she forgave herself. Nadia smiled more now. Not for approval, not to be chosen, but because, for the first time, her life was facing outward. And it felt like freedom. Sunday morning. The church was full. Nadia stood near the back at first, watching people arrive. Faces tired, hopeful, heavy. She noticed things she used to miss. A woman sitting alone. A man wiping his eyes quickly. A young girl clinging to her mother's hand. She moved without rushing. Sat beside the woman. Smiled gently. Listened. When worship began, Nadia lifted her hands. Not searching. Not asking to be filled. Just present. Later, Pastor Elijah passed by. Their eyes met. He nodded. She nodded back. No urgency. No need to be held longer than necessary. After service, Nadia walked outside with the evangelism team. Sunlight warmed the pavement. She laughed. Frilly this time. Her phone buzzed in her bag. She didn't reach for it. She already knew where she was anchored. That evening, back in her apartment, the quiet returned. But it felt different now. Not empty. Spacious. Nadia sat by the window. Bible open. City sounds drifting in. Guard your heart. She smiled softly. She was